Jacob Fadley served 12 years and 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was a combat photographer in the Army. He spent time close to heart-thumping blasts. Yet he came home without a scratch on the outside.
Did you think you had post-traumatic stress?
No. I knew I had PTSD, but I never wanted to say that, because when you say it, then you have to deal with it.
Dr. Daniel Pearl has a clue as to what's going on inside the heads of veterans like Jacob Fadley. He's a neuropathologist at the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, an entity of the Department of Defense. He's studying how blast exposure impacts the brain.
Now, this is from an individual who had been in an automobile accident.
He's been looking at the brains of civilians who suffered head injuries and comparing them to soldiers exposed to blasts.
Now, let me show you the same procedure, roughly the same area of the brain, same stain.
Oh, wow.
This is somebody who'd been exposed to an IED.
This is an individual who'd been exposed to a massive blast. Is this also someone who had post-traumatic stress disorder?
Yes.
Dr. Pearl believes that this brown scarring is a breakthrough discovery, evidence that PTSD, a psychological disorder, may be partly the result of physical harm.
When the explosion goes off, it forms what's called a blast wave, which is a high-pressure pulse that expands out from the blast in all directions at the speed of sound, approximately. High-pressure pulse passing through this delicate instrument called the brain.
Just get the cheese out for me.
You're right.
I came back home from my 3rd deployment, and I cried like all the time.
Fadley left the military in 2014 after his 4th deployment.
What's another visual component?
33 and eligible for the GI Bill, he thought studying film at USC would put his life back on track. But just 1 month into his first semester,
I didn't see the train signal. I didn't see that at all. Made a left turn exactly as the train was coming. I could feel blood pouring out of me. I knew I was dying.
Fadley had driven, accidentally, into the path of an oncoming commuter train. To this day, he avoids this intersection.
It's not comfortable, yeah. It's okay. I'm not upset. I'm just anxious.
It was finally enough for him to seek treatment for PTSD.
That sawdusty brown pattern that exists across the brain. An MRI doesn't pick that up, a CAT scan doesn't pick that up.
No.
You can't see that in a living person.
Okay, it's not that it isn't there, it just doesn't have the resolution to see it. We're going to need to use other means. We're going to have to develop other approaches.
The Veterans Administration uses the diagnosis of the American Psychiatric Association for PTSD. They call it a mental disorder to be treated by drugs or therapy. They don't consider it a physical injury. The VA's chief mental health consultant is Dr. Harold Cudler.
I think no matter what we find in the brain and the blood on EEGs, we're still going to have these conversations with people and talk about what trauma means to people as part of their recovery.
Fadley's college thesis, a film called Into the Trenches, focused on his struggles. He hopes research will one day give him the comfort of knowing what's going wrong inside his head.
It makes you feel like you're not crazy. You can point to something to someone else and say, do you see this? This thing did it.
I'm Soledad O'Brien in Los Angeles.